Levels is a powerful set of controls that you will find in both Photoshop and Photoshop Elements. And they are simply used to control brightness, contrast, and to apply color effects. And the color effects can be corrective or they can be creative. So we're going to take a basic look at levels to help you get started with this set of controls. There are two ways to access levels, and the first way is using the shortcut Ctrl and L. On a Mac, that would be Command and L. But when working this way, it is destructive, so you are working on the background layer. The background layer actually has to be selected as well, so it's not really recommended to use levels in this way. The best way to use levels is to use a levels adjustment layer, and I've just created one there. And you can see on the layers panel that I have a levels 1 adjustment layer above the background. So let's take a quick look around the dialog. And at the top here, we have a set of presets, which is set to default. And default simply is a levels adjustment layer that doesn't have any settings applied. And then we can use some of these presets to make changes. But if you know how to use levels, these become completely redundant. So we're not going to delve into those too much. So here we have our histogram. On the left, we have our black point. In the center below, we have the midpoint. And on the right, we have our white point. And to create contrast, all that we need to do is drag these 2 points, so the black and the white points, inwards, and you'll see there that we have boosted the contrast. So let's just adjust the contrast correctly for this image. So I'm going to take the black point inwards to 10 and the white point inwards to 250. So that has applied the correct amount of contrast for this image. And then by using the midtone or the midpoint slider, you'll see they're dragging it to the right, darkens the image, and dragging over to the left lightens the image. So it's a really simple set of controls here, but as you can see, they do make a drastic difference to the image. So I'm just going to darken this shot off slightly there. So here we've darkened things off and we've added a touch of contrast as well. So below the histogram, we have the output levels. So here what we have done is increased the black and the white points, and the output levels simply decrease them. So there we are simply lightening the shadows and adding a kind of haze to the image. And if we take it all the way over to the right, it makes it completely white. And it's the same on the right hand side with the white point. Just watch the detail in the flowers there. So we are reducing that white point. So we're making the image muddier. And then as we drag it over to the left, it becomes completely black. So the controls we have here are extremely similar to those in curves, but they're easier to use. You don't get quite as much precision, but the advantage of levels is that they're not quite as intimidating as curves. So I'm going to leave the output levels as they are for this shot because I'm completely happy with them. And before we delve into the color channels, you'll see here we have an auto button where you can click on there, and Photoshop attempts to correct the image in the way that it thinks is correct. But for me, it doesn't work very well because it's really quite a blunt instrument. It doesn't necessarily work how you would want it to. Okay, so let's move into the color channels. So now we're working on the reds. So with this slider here, the black slider, if I drag that over to the right, you'll see that I'm adding cyan into the image. And then if I use the white point, we are adding red because they're the two opposing colors within that channel. But if I move down to the output levels, you'll see that I'm adding red to the shadows. And then here it's cyan to the highlights. So there is a hint of red in this shot here. So I'm going to take the shadows over to 2 just to add a small amount of cyan. And then I'm just going to do the same to the highlights, just bringing that over to 253. So that's just removed that really slight red cast that we had in the image. And it's the same with the green and the blue channels. So when you're working with the black point below the histogram, I'm adding magenta here with the greens. And then if I go over to the white, I'm adding greens into the highlights. Then if I go down to the output levels, I'm adding green to the shadows. And then with the white point, I'm adding magenta to the highlights. So as you can see there, there's a huge amount of control. So there I've just gone back to RGB and I'm working on brightness and contrast once again, and I can close this layer down. So there you can see that Levels has a huge amount of potential for making adjustments to your images, and it's a control that will undoubtedly come in use at some point in the future.